Welcome, world, to another episode of Nobody's a Nobody podcast with me, Mike McVeigh. This is the podcast where I interview people I find absolutely fascinating, and I believe you will too if you give them a chance. This week, our featured guest is the Wheel Deal, Bryce Wooten, and our musical guest, Jarvix's Hot Dog Song of the Week, is Ascension by Sara Byrd. We're going to always support Our Neighborhood Empowered, 1okc.org, but I also want to bring up another nonprofit / shout out business. I want to look at Sasquatch Shaved Ice. It's literally sasquatchshavedIce.org. It's an organization that helps provide jobs and teach people the skills necessary to get jobs, and they do it by selling shaved ice. And now that we're getting into summer, I know in Oklahoma it's already summer, it's a great thing to do. Our guest this week is Bryce Wooten, and I met Bryce in Toastmasters, and we talk about it a little bit, but he's done some things that has continually challenged the status quo. He has continued to achieve statuses that are sometimes put off as excuses for other people. So let's talk to Bryce Wooten, the Wheel Deal. What's your favorite nickname that you've ever had?
Probably the Wheel Deal for sure. That's very inventive with, my situation. I'm one of those people that if you're not able to kind of poke fun at yourself, what are you doing? If you can make light of every situation, that's the best way to grow as a person, I feel like. If you can embrace your situation, any situation, whether you have a disability or not, it's great. Everybody has flaws, and a lot of people think that vulnerability is a weakness. I believe in the years that I've been a motivational speaker, that vulnerability is the greatest strength you can have. And it kind of sets people apart on who's willing to be vulnerable and who's not. What are you hiding if you're not willing to be vulnerable?
Right. Now, you said that poking fun at your situation. For those who don't know who you are, why would that be poking fun at your situation to call you the Wheel Deal?
Because I live with cerebral palsy. I have been confined into a wheelchair for 24 years now. A lot of people will sit there and say, oh, I feel sorry for him, or, oh, that's so sad. Well, here's the thing. I look at it like this. What has my legs given to me that my mind hasn't? I'm a motivational speaker. I'm a life coach. I'm a Toastmaster. I'm the president of my Toastmasters Club. I'm a college graduate. I'm a 2-time academic All-American. The accolades of my life has far surpassed anything that my legs could ever offer me. So when people say, oh, I'm so sorry that you can't walk, I'm like, really, I'm not, because tell me one thing that my legs could offer me that would give me any recognition that my situation right now would be worth it.
Right. Now, let's talk about some of those accomplishments that you had, regardless of what the limits or lack of limits there have been for
Sure.
that. I didn't actually know that you were an academic All-American twice.
Yes, 2013 and 2014, my junior year and senior year of high school. 2 of my teachers nominated me for the academic All-American, which means that you are the top 1% grade point average-wise in the whole United States. So to get it once is an incredible accomplishment. To get it twice is unprecedented, according to some people. When I got nominated twice, I had no idea that I was up for it. The principal came to my classroom and said, Bryce, you're an academic All-American. And I, me not knowing that I was up for it, I had to Google it. And I was like, academic All-American, that's usually for only athletes. And my principal said, no, you're one of the top 1% in the whole entire nation. And there was only 2 students at my high school that was up for it, me and another girl, and we both got it because we had the same GPA. And it was just amazing that 6 weeks later, I got my picture in the whole nation's yearbook, and it had my photo in what state I lived in and my GPA, which I graduated high school with a 3.96 GPA.
So once you won it once, not just once, but twice, what kind of doors did that open up for you? Or what did that allow you to do Dreamwise to be able to take that award? Did you just kind of put it in your closet and like, oh, that was nice?
You know, it really like opened my doors that colleges, once they saw that, they were like, man, I really would like him to not only be a part of our university from a diversity standpoint, from an education standpoint. You know, when I interviewed with UCO, they were like, you would be such a great diversity factor, not only because you're a individual with a disability, but from your education achievements and background. And I just felt like UCO at the time was such a family unit. I felt like I wanted to be close to home, but I also wanted that big university feel. But I felt like UCO at the time was the best fit for me, and we can get into that a little bit later if you would like me to dive more into that.
So, just for those who don't know, University of Central Oklahoma, up in Edmond, Oklahoma. What was your major at UCO?
Okay, funny story. I went to college to get a degree in finance. And then 6 months after I enrolled in college, my father passed away. So I kind of changed my dynamic of what I wanted to do. You know, I was like taking all these finance classes and all these math classes and realized that really finance wasn't for me. And then I took a semester off in 2017. I finished the spring semester right after my dad passed. And then the fall of 2017, I took a semester off. And that's where I found Toastmasters. And the funny story is my buddy Ryan and I that I do triathlons with, we were sitting in the car driving to go get coffee, and he says, what are you going to do for the next six months since you're off for, a personal break? And I said, you know what? I really don't know. He said, why don't you try to become a motivational speaker? And I said, you got to be joking, right? What do I got to be motivational about? He said, you're an individual with a disability. You're a college student. You're 6 months after your dad's passed, and you've not let that define and defeat who you are. How is that not inspirational? How can somebody not connect with that? And I thought to myself, I was like, first of all, I don't even know what Toastmasters is or was. So the next day, I Google Oklahoma City Toastmasters clubs, and the club that I'm in, OKC Speakers, was the first one that popped up. So I called the number, and I believe the guy that answered the phone was Ray Willis, and we both know Ray. He's a great guy. And he gave me the information for OKC Speakers on Monday night at St. Eugene's. And I still remember the first day that I walked in was October the 8th of 2017. And I remember being in my first meeting and scared to death because they asked me if I wanted to participate in table topics. And first of all, I did not know what that was. And Brian Bridges, which is a dear friend of both of us, explained what that was. And I said, you want me to speak a minute to 2 minutes on a topic that I have no idea what the topic is, and just random, and go up in front of 14 people and speak? He said, absolutely. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. But me being the champion that I am with trying new things, I let my nervousness go and I spoke. And after I spoke for the minute and a half, I just knew from the response and the positive feedback that I got, Toastmasters was the family for me. And I'm going to say it again because you're a Toastmaster as well, and you know this. Toastmasters International is not just a club, it's a family. You grow to be the best version of you being in Toastmasters. I cannot tell you, Mike, from the person that I am 3 years ago to the person I am today, the confidence that I have grown and the strength and the trust that I've grown being in Toastmasters has completely changed my life.
I actually want to back up just a little bit though, because I'm kind of curious. What was it about finance that attracted, like what got you into finance initially?
Okay, great question, actually. I was always a person that loved numbers. I loved solving problems. I was always known as the problem solver. So if anybody had like a math question or anything like that, I took calculus and trig in high school and, excelled in those types of classes. And then when I was getting ready to declare my major, my father said, "Why don't you get a degree in finance and become a certified public accountant since you love math?" And I said, "Why not? I took all these classes in high school. Why not?" And then, when my father passed away, I was like, I really don't want to be sitting at a desk all day. Even though that sounds nice and I love playing with numbers, I want to make a difference. I want to leave the world better than I found it. And my dad always told me that. My dad was big on faith and big on his Native American culture. And he told my brother and I growing up, leave the world better than you found it. Leave an impact bigger than you know. So when you go and go be with the Lord, people remember your impact more than the person that you are. Because he said impacts last forever.
And because you said that you took a semester off and now that you are a college graduate, did you continue with finance or did you switch your major to
No,
something else?
that's a great question. I ended up with a degree in enterprise development, which helps me run my foundation, try that better as more of a business rather than just a foundation, because it helps me navigate my motivational speaking and life coaching as well.
And what is the name of that foundation again?
TRIDAT, TRIDAT. The DAT stands for Do Amazing Things.
I like that.
And a lot of people get this misinterpretation that it's all about doing triathlons. And that's not at all what it is. The DAT means do amazing things, which is the realm of that means step out of your comfort zone and get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Do something that you're not normally doing. Like, for example, volunteering at a food bank, saying hello to a random person, doing a random act of kindness. Like, for example, shoveling snow for an elderly person during the, snow that we just had. Any random thing that gets you out of your comfort zone and gets you back to that time in your life where you're like, wow, I did something that could impact somebody's life more than myself. It's not about me. It's about we or us as a community. One of our taglines for TriDat is passion over possession. And what I mean by that is let your passions and your interests overpower your possessions in your life. Meaning, don't let the things like a new car or a new house or a girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, whatever, overpower your interest in possessions. Don't let that hold a crutch over you.
You mentioned a couple different things that, again, if people don't know you, it probably sounded a little bit confusing, but try that comes try isn't just like try that. Hey, why don't you try that and try that? It kind of started with another hobby exercise regimen that coalesced. So why don't we talk a little bit about what that part of try that is?
In February of 2017, Ryan Smoke, who is my triathlon partner, I grew up with his son Logan for 11 years. He reached out to me 4 years or 2.5 years after I graduated from high school with this grand idea of being my race partner. And he said that he wanted to start out small, but his vision was to run a full Ironman, which is a 112-mile bike ride, 26.2 a 112-mile bike ride, 26.2-mile run, and a 2.4-mile swim. And you probably are looking at me in the screen going, you're nuts. And yes, I am. So to back up a little bit, he wanted to start with the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon. And I remember getting the phone call that Friday with that grand idea, and I said, "You do realize and do remember that I am in a wheelchair, correct?"
Yeah, I was going
And
to say, I mean, with all respect, how do you run a marathon without
okay,
legs?
so good question. I'm gonna get into that. We have this amazing adaptive cart that is made from Adaptive Star in Seattle, Washington, which is incredible. And they've been amazing throughout our journey, making sure that I'm comfortable, and it's custom made and it's great. So Ryan came up with this grand idea that if he was going to train, so was I. So we started out every Sunday, him coming and getting me and going to the gym. So after a few weeks of that, he was like, "What about you getting your own personal trainer and training on your own?" Because some Sundays I can't do it because he's got a job other than doing this with me, that he's got other things and a wife and what have you. So I started getting in contact with my trainer, Shepherd, who I have been with for almost 3 years now. And he has made, you know, things adaptive for me and just made it to where I can be the best version of myself. So going into that race in April, it wasn't as extensive as an Ironman race, but being able to cross the finish line for the first time as a team, because you got to realize there are not many adaptive teams in the United States. As I know of, Ryan and I are one of 4 or 5.
What exactly do you do in this adaptive team? Do you?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
please explain that if you would.
he pushes me in a cart, and I'm literally sitting in the cart for the 112-mile bike ride, and then for the 26.2-mile run, he is pushing me in the cart, and then for the swim part, he is pulling me in a kayak. But one thing that a lot of people don't understand is those big Ironman races are between 16 and 17 hours nonstop. So I'm having to really work on my core to be able to withstand sitting for that long amount of time. So for that race going into June of 2018, when we did Ironman Boulder, Shepard and I, my personal trainer, had to do a lot of extensive core work to be able to get my abs and core muscles to peak performance so I could withstand that. So, for example, when I started working out with Shepard in March of 2017 to June of 2018 to get ready for Ironman Boulder, I was 26.3% body fat and got down to 8.4. I completely changed my diet. I completely cut out soda for the most part. I mean, I was in the best shape of my life, and it was absolutely great, to see the physical transformation from where I was at to where I was ready for race day. It was
Absolutely. Absolutely. And is that something I mean, I'm not sure if they're doing it during the pandemic, but is that something that you're preparing for post pandemic?
supposedly, yes. We have a race that's waiting on whether or not COVID restrictions will lift it. I know that last year when we tried to do Ironman Texas, they ended up canceling it due to the rise in cases in Texas. So we are kind of waiting right now for the COVID restrictions, if they will lift. If not, then we will wait till COVID restrictions get lifted. I mean, we have done our own races in the last year with the 4x4x48, and I can explain that a little bit if you.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so what the 4x4x48 was created was by U.S. Marine Corps, Navy SEAL, David Goggins. I don't know if you're familiar with David Goggins. So basically, he created this race as a way of endurance and to see how many people would quit. It was to show your determination and your will to not give up. So basically what it is, Mike, is it's 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
That sounds insane just hearing it.
Yes. Yes. So if you can imagine being out at Lake Hefner, because we did it at Lake Hefner because we didn't want it to be in our neighborhood. We wanted it to be as crazy as possible because, again, I'm nuts. So if you can imagine racing every 4 hours, 4 miles for every 4 hours, 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours, having to bring your own food, having to sleep in my really good friend's trailer with an air mattress every 4 hours, and getting up every 4 hours, restless, because even if you're sleeping for 4 hours, you're really not sleeping. You've got the next batch of miles in your head. You're like, it's time, it's go time. Let's, but the competitive nature of Ryan and I together is incredible. Like, before I met the sport of triathlons and before I met the world of Toastmasters and public speaking and stuff like that, I was a very competitive person. I always wanted to be involved in sports, but there weren't many sports opportunities for a person like me. Yes, there's Special Olympics, but in the state of Oklahoma, you have to have a certain IQ, and my IQ was higher than their requirements. So again, there were not very many sporting opportunities for me. So for me to be able to be in a sport and to be recognized with not only individuals with disabilities, but to be with individuals that don't have a physical disability is great. And for me to be able to trailblaze, that area of teams with disabilities, I'm very honored to do so.
Yeah. Now, I do know that even though you've not been able to do traditional sports because of not only disabilities, but just opportunities that are available, you have found a way, even before doing these triathlons, of being involved in sports, esports, specifically Madden football. And I understand that you, at a time, and maybe currently, have been pretty well high ranked in the Madden esport environment.
Correct. I got my hands on my first Madden game on the PlayStation 1 days in Madden 2000. I remember this is going to date myself a little bit. I remember going to Babbage's game store in the mall and picking up Madden 2000, which had, I don't even remember who was on the cover at the time, but it doesn't matter. And I remember popping it in the old PlayStation and just being enamored at, the heavy hitting and the larger than life characters like Ray Lewis and Derek Thomas and all those guys that I watched on TV growing up as a kid. And starting out in 2014, I really started noticing that I was an above average Madden player. I was winning more than I was losing. And then I really wanted to hone my craft. And starting in 2015, I really started taking head-to-head competition really seriously online. And I'm happy to mention that over the last 6 years, I have been in the top 100 in the entire world for the last 6 years.
All right. Since I have played Madden off and on for way before you were probably born, you're saying you're dating yourself. I remember when the first Madden came out. I do have to say that I throw everybody off guard because I punt every first down I get, and they never expect it.
Right.
It's great.
And that's funny you say that because sometimes when I'm playing an opponent, I will punt on third down and I'll punt it inside the 10, 5-yard line. And they're like, it's third down. I was like, I want to see if you can catch on to that curveball, because every once in a while on third down, I sometimes punt to kind of throw my opponent on off guard, or I'll go for it on fourth down when people aren't expecting it, because usually you punt on fourth down, show your sportsmanship. But sometimes, if my opponent is doing something that I don't like, I'm like, okay, the nice guy is going out the window and I'm going for it on fourth down, and I'm going to step on your neck like a snake and just end the game.
Well, that's one reason why I probably won't ever play you, because I already get my neck stepped on enough in the real world.
Right. And I know that we've had conversations about Madden and stuff when we've had meetings in person, but I would love to eventually, when the world kind of dies down a little bit, I would love to eventually maybe start a streaming channel or a Twitch channel and show the world kind of what I have as far as competitive gaming goes.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I think I would definitely watch a little bit of it and then realize I'm not going to put the time and effort
Right.
in. So I'm not very good at watching other people play unless it's to improve myself. So one of the things I'm curious about, because I only know what my life is like. I mean, I hear other people tell me what their experiences are, and I try to sift through that and compare and contrast. I think most of us do that to some level. What has been the most difficult thing you have had to deal with that you may not have overcome yet?
Here's the thing. Here's the thing with that I still struggle with this to this day. With living with cerebral palsy, a lot of people don't know what it is. They automatically think that I'm paralyzed, or they automatically think that I can't speak, or I have some language problems or language dialect or whatever. But the biggest thing that I have that I've faced in my life is not a lot of people are open to giving me a chance, and I mean that, like, a lot of people are not open minded about people with any disability, whether it's physical, whether it's your skin color, whether you're dealing with a weight issue. People are just not open minded. They want to kind of live in their own standard of how they want to live their life, and if you're not a certain type or if you're not a certain way, they don't want to immerse you in their life. And I feel like for most of my life, I started dealing with depression when I was 15 years old, because going into high school, the people that I had been friends with from the time that I was 4 years old to the time that I was 15, the social dynamic had changed. So everybody that I was close with from the time that I was 4 years old had started distancing themselves from me. And I didn't understand why, because I was still the same kid that they hung out with. And I really got really depressed about it because I didn't understand why. And now, coming out of it and being a motivational speaker and life coach because of it, I understand why. Because the social dynamic of high school and peer pressure and all the nasty things that people go through at that age were coming out, and people were trying to find themselves. And I still have moments where I still battle with my depression and anxiety, but for the most part, I have been a champion and a conqueror through that. But if I could go back and tell my 15 or 16-year-old self something, is don't change anything. Things will get better when it's your time. Like, I used to dwell on the past, thinking that, if I would have just done this, or if I would have just done this, or whatever have you, the same excuses you give at 15, 16 years old, if I would have, done this different. But I feel like, Mike, if I would have done all those things, my journey and my story and my testament as a motivational speaker and a life coach would not be as strong as it is today. And the things that I went through as a child with my father, battling with addiction, my testament with that wouldn't be as strong as it is. So and it kind of chokes me up thinking about it. I am thankful for the scars and the road that I was given, because it made me the person that I am today. And I'm able to look at the next generation of individuals, disabilities or not, and they don't have to fight as hard as I did. They have an easier road, and I'm blessed for that.
Right. Now, I've been purposely trying to keep from talking about the stuff that's easy to talk about with you. I've been trying to push a little bit more to get some more background and stuff. One, because even though we know each other through Toastmasters and I know some things about you, I don't really know some of the stuff of
Sure.
you being younger and all, as well as my listeners. I'm sure that they would like to know a little bit more of what makes you the person who you become. You know, you mentioned it just now, and I've talked about it on the show several times that we are kind of a conglomeration of everything we've done and everything that's been done
Sure.
to us. So now, Bryce Wooten, you are currently a motivational speaker. You are currently a life coach. You're running the Tridat Foundation. What does that mean?
Here's the thing with that, Mike, is that's a beautiful question, and I get asked all the time when I give talks. What is a motivational speaker and what is a life coach and having your own foundation mean to you? And it's quite simple.
Oh, no, not to you. I don't care what it means to you. What does it mean to me and the rest of the world that you are?
What does it mean to the rest of the world? Is I'm giving individuals who cannot speak or maybe don't have the exact or adequate words to say what they feel or mean. I'm giving them a voice. I'm giving them an opportunity to express themselves and say to the world that I am here and I have arrived. Just because I have a disability or a different ability, whatever you want to mention, does not mean that I can't graduate from college. Does not mean that I can't be one of the top academic people in my high school or around the world. Does not mean that I can't become a Toastmaster. Does not mean I cannot be president of the United States. Whatever your dream is, you can do it as long as you have the right people behind you and as long as you believe in yourself. Because for so many years when I was battling depression and anxiety, I doubted myself, and that was the biggest crutch. I looked at myself and I said, I kind of looked at it in a wrong way, Mike. I said, I wanted to be rich and famous for the wrong reasons. I was hoping that with me becoming rich and famous, that if I had all this money and I had all this fame, that my disability would disappear. And I know that's such a selfish way to look at things. And I look at that from 15 or 16-year-old me, and I'm like, wow, that was such a selfish mindset. But I'm happy that I was able to have that mindset, because I know that there's millions and millions and millions of individuals that have had that same mindset. And Mike, I'm going to say this, and this is very powerful. If I can save one from having that mindset, then my journey of going through everything that I went through, all the sacrifices, all the pain of everything that I went through my whole life was worth it.
Well, I think the one thing that's going to be good is you know that you've already made that impact. I hope you know that you've made that impact on more than one person.
Well, I
And that you're
appreciate that very
continuing
much.
to make that impact. Talk a little bit about what you see the business of being a motivational speaker, the business of being a life coach, how that's going to look over the next couple years.
Big picture, I would love to do a speaking engagement in every one of the 50 states, and to be able to share my message in every part of the United States. I think that would be a huge honor. To be able to share my story all around the world and to be able to inspire kids. My dream is to work with all kids, to be able to show them that if you have the right foundation and the right people behind you and the right people fighting for you, anything is possible. Because I was fortunate enough to have a mother and a father and a brother and grandparents that fought for me. Some people are not fortunate enough to have a mentor that are a little bit older than them to be able to guide them in a way that parents can't do. Does that make sense? Parents can
It does.
only lead you so far. Parents can only give you so much advice and say, you know what, you're doing great. And that's good to hear it everything. But if you hear it from somebody else, like for example, my best friend, Mike, who is 9 years older than me, not this Mike, a different Mike. I met him on Xbox in 2009. He lives in Columbus, Ohio, and the love and affection and the brotherhood that he has shown me over the 12 years that we have been friends is more than I could ever ask for. Our friendship really didn't start blossoming to what it is today till about 2014, 2015, and I was in an Xbox Live chat party with him where we could chat with friends, and I was really down on myself that day and talking about my depression and my anxiety and whatever, kind of having a self-pity party. And he said to me, and it still chokes me up to this day because we still talk about it, he was upset about something earlier in the day. I don't know what it was. He doesn't know either. And he said to me, I am your brother. I am your family. He said, I don't want to be associated with somebody that feels sorry for themselves when they have so many gifts to give this world and they don't even see it. He said, I am here for you because I love and support you. He said, I'm not going to be here supporting somebody that doesn't want to support themselves and encourage themselves and truly show the world what he has been given. He said, you may be in a chair, yes, but there are so many other gifts that you have that people don't see yet. He said, you are the most loyal, compassionate, and trustworthy person I've ever met. He said, you find something that you're truly passionate about and you go and get it. For example, I have been in Toastmasters a little over 3 years, and I am almost done with my DTM. And Mike, you and I have talked about how difficult getting a DTM plaque is because you're a recipient of a DTM plaque, and seeing you get that DTM plaque and being able to share that moment with you, I'm telling you, Mike, that was one of the greatest honors that I have ever been given, to be able to help you achieve that. That was really something special, and I want you to know how much that meant to me to be able to be a part of that with you. And
well, thank you, Bryce. That means a lot. Yes, you and OKC Speakers have been, you guys were my final piece, and I like to recognize all the pieces, and I'm glad that you are very much a part of that. You said earlier about cerebral palsy that a lot of people don't really understand what that means or what that is. Could you give us a description of what that is?
Sure. So cerebral palsy in a nutshell is it's a brain bleed that causes motor skill impairment or many different things. Really, there's different severities of brain bleeds. I had a grade 1 bleed, which is the smallest bleed that you can have at birth. And my doctor told my parents that I hit the genetic jackpot when it comes to cerebral palsy, because if it hit 1 degree to the left or 1 degree to the right, I wouldn't have been disabled, but it landed directly in my motor skills. But here's the funny thing about cerebral palsy is there's different severities. I know some individuals with cerebral palsy that have to have a feeding tube. I know some of people with cerebral palsy that are not able to communicate. I know one of my friends that has cerebral palsy who's paralyzed from the waist down. You know, it just depends on what severity of cerebral palsy you're given. And I am so blessed that a lot of people look at my situation and they're like, cerebral palsy, wow, he's really given a complete, of a curveball. And, when you're not living it, it may look like that. And yes, my life can be challenging at times. Yes, I'm not saying that, but I am thankful now that I'm an adult and able to look at it from a different perspective. Yes, when I was a kid, it sucked. And I was like, man, I can't play sports with my brother, or I can't play sports with a neighbor, or, I can't run around and, chase my brother, whatever. But I am so blessed with the situation that I am that it only affects my legs, and the rest of my mind and body is perfectly functioning, as I like to say, that I was able to accomplish so many more things and get to experience things that most people with cerebral palsy don't get to experience. And that's what I love about being a motivational speaker and life coach, is I get to be that voice and that person of reason for people that may not know how to, may not know the exact words they want to use, or may not be able to speak at all. I take very, very much pride in and humbling to know that I'm the voice for those individuals, and for their families, that their parents may not know what to do, or the resources to give them the best equipment needed to have the best life that they can. I mean, living with a disability, Mike, can be very expensive. I've had 5 or 6 wheelchairs in my life, and they can range from $12 to $30,000. The batteries need to be changed every 4 years. They can be anywhere from $800 to $1,200. Yeah, it living with a disability can be very expensive, with the therapy sessions and stuff like that. So what I tell people is just to be thankful for what you have. Don't look at my situation as a pity party. I am very thankful that I've had the parents and the family that I've had that have been very supportive and, very adaptive with my life. And that's what you got to do living with a disability. You got to just know how to adapt. And I'm blessed that I've been able to do that.
Yeah, and you've taken that, and not only have you adapted, you found ways to put yourself in a position of mastery in several areas.
Sure.
And that's something that, regardless of circumstances, it's always difficult for most people to find a way of mastering. So, thank you for sharing that. I want to make sure I ask this before I ask my last question to you. If somebody's listening to this podcast and would like to book you for speaking, because I do know we have people from all over the United States that listen, what would be for the best way for them to contact you?
You can contact me on Instagram, or you can contact me directly through Tridat's website, and Tridat's Instagram page, and the Tridat 365 that I mentioned, or you can go through my personal Instagram, which is Bryce_Wooten 97, or you can text me directly through the Tridat website, and Ryan will relate that to me.
Okay. Now, my last question could be both either the easiest or the most difficult. I guess it just really depends on you. If I haven't already asked or I haven't covered it, what is something you want to share with my audience today?
Oh, what a good question. To never give up. I was one of those people that at 16, 17 years old, I was one of those people that contemplated giving up and didn't know where my life was going to turn out, dealing with depression and anxiety, and really thinking, is my life really valuable? And now looking at 24 years old, being a motivational speaker, being involved in Toastmasters, being an Ironman, all the things that I've accomplished, college graduate, my life is valuable. And if I can, again, help one person realize that their life is valuable and to be on their side and help them through their own trials and tribulations, then my struggle and things that I went through growing up and in adolescence and still are going through, because my life's not over. There are still going to be roadblocks and stopping points where I'm going to be like, oh, this is not easy. And, I think that shows that you're willing to evolve. If the world was easy, everybody would be like, wow, this is cupcakes and rainbows. But as you know, being involved in the world is created to kick you in the mouth and to see how well you respond. A teacher of mine I'm going to do one personal story. I remember being in 3rd grade, Mrs. Penner. Shout out to Mrs. Penner if she's listening. I got upset because I had gotten one spelling word wrong on my weekly spelling test. And I got really upset and I started to cry. And Mrs. Penner called me over to her desk and she said something that I've never forgotten. It's almost been 20 years now. She said, "It's okay to get mad and upset about something. It's how you respond, it's how you evolve and how you grow." She said, "It's okay to get upset and mad about you messing up or missing a question wrong. It's how you grow and evolve the next time on the next test, not just now, but when you're in high school and you're college. It's okay to be upset, but not doing something about it the next time is where you mess up."
That's a great story. That's a great encouragement from Mrs. Penner.
Professional wrestling. I started watching professional wrestling in 1999 when I was almost 3 years old. And professional wrestling back in 1999, as you know, was the Attitude Era of blood and alcohol and sex, and everything was shown on TV. And my parents at first were not okay with me watching professional wrestling because of the content. But the reason why they continued to allow me to watch it was when I would sit down and watch Monday Night Raw or WCW Nitro at the time, I would get into it almost like a trance. I would kick my arms and kick my legs and, do really good physical therapy. And they would see me crawling on the floor and, tackling my brother and, trying to emulate some of the moves. And so I remember being enamored with these larger than life characters like The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H and Kane. And those became my first role models because, and I bring this up in a lot of my motivational talks, is growing up, there were not people like myself that I could grow up and emulate because there were not individuals in wheelchairs on TV that I could be like, wow, I want to be like him. So I was not necessarily forced, but kind of forced to be associated with individuals that did not have a disability. So that's why I take so much pride in being that hero of somebody that they can look at me doing all these races and all these things in Toastmasters and be like, wow, if Bryce can do it, so can I. And I have been fortunate enough to have little kids come to my speaking engagements and their parents be like, wow, she or he wants to be just like you because you've made a good living, you've made a good life for yourself, and you've shown my kid that you can, anything is possible.
Hopefully, your story will continue to inspire people to emulate, to take your archetype, to take your avatar, to take your example, and be that version of them that can inspire others down the line. So, well, thank you very much, Bryce. It's been a pleasure having you on. I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog. Hot dog.
Hey listeners, it's Jarvix again with my hot dog song of the week. This episode, I'm bringing you one of my favorite new voices in Oklahoma City soul and R&B, Sara Byrd. She's incredibly talented, and rather than boast of her superb musicianship, she puts it all in the music and lets it speak for itself. I first came to know Sara as a pianist who played in local neo-soul type bands, elevating every project she touched with a delicate and subtly ornate style of playing. I made a point to keep her on my radar, especially once I realized she had pipes to go with it. She started making a name for herself as a solo artist, and I, along with many others, started to ask when she'd be putting out some recorded music. She'd been picking up spotlight guest features on other artists' songs for a while, but when would she put out that solo project? I would have been satisfied with just about anything, but that was not the case with Sara Byrd. She took her time to really put in the work to meet her high standards, and she finally satiated our need for new music with an EP called Divine Timing, released late last year. I was expecting something in a full live band style, akin to what I had seen at Sara Byrd's live performances here and there, so I was surprised in a good way when the EP proved to take her timeless abilities and apply them to a modern R&B style with solid studio production. Since there wasn't a whole rollout with lead singles to kind of tease the sound ahead of the release, I didn't know what to expect, and yeah, this one is legit. If you dig slow jams, there's a lot to love on this EP. Contrary to how the slow jam trope is often presented, though, this album isn't sensual all of the time. Case in point, the song I'm bringing you today. It's called Ascension, and it's all about working through tough times and learning from it to become stronger on the other side. Lots of power anthems out there burst with hype, but this one rises elegantly. I find it a nice change of pace on this idea of taking sweet comfort in one's personal wins. Listen for the awesome vocal layering on this one, and if you like what you hear, check out the full project, Divine Timing, on the big online music platforms like Apple Music and Spotify. Just remember that Bird is spelled with a Y when you do. Here is Ascension by Sara Byrd.
Chasing the prize. Tell me who gon' bring me down. Tell me who gon' stop me now. Who gon' stop me now? Different vibrations, finally made it. Tell me who gon' bring me down. Who gon' bring me down? I've been meditating, been concentrating on my elevation. It's been amazing, finding a new vibe, riding a new high, making some changes better in my life. I feel so alive. Tell me who gon' bring me down? Who gon' bring me down? Tell me who gon' stop me now? Who is gonna stop me now? Vibrations finally made it. Tell me who gon' bring me down? Who gon' bring me down? My eyes are open, now I'm focused. Found my purpose, put in work in. Now I'm in my bag, yeah. I will keep making the change necessary for me in my life to elevate me to the highest potential, and I just can't hide it. Tell me who gon' bring me down? Who gon' bring me down? Tell me who gon' stop me now? Who gon' stop me now? Different vibrations, finally made it. Who? Tell me who gon' bring me down? Bring me down, no. Tell me who gon' bring me down? You won't bring me down, can't bring me down. Tell me who gon' stop me now? Can't stop me now, no. Different vibrations, finally made it. Finally. Tell me who gon' bring me down? Who gon' bring me down?
Thank you so much to Sara Byrd, to Bryce Wooten. Please consider supporting Sasquatch Shaved Ice and, of course, Our Neighborhood Empowered. It has been a pleasure sharing this episode this week, and I hope that you understand, no matter what you're going through, no matter where you are in life, that nobody is a nobody, and that means you. Until next time.